A small event in one part of the world can lead to big events in another. This is called the butterfly effect. Even the flapping of a butterfly's wings can affect many things, especially in times of crisis. Such effects increase. The war between Russia and Ukraine also affected the whole world, but for some countries, the impact was too great. This led to more countries intervening in the war. Turkey is one of the countries most affected by this war. Turkey has been doing many things for a long time to end this war, but Turkey's latest move has backed Russia into a corner. Kremlin leaders are in a big panic. European leaders are talking about this move. Now, the course of the war may change completely. As a result of our research, we have reached many special information. This news, which our team has been working on for a long time, shows that the balance in the war has changed. It is very important to support independent journalism for this kind of exclusive reporting. You can support our team by clicking the Super Thanks button below the video. If you're ready, let's start. Turkey is one of the countries most affected by the war between Russia and Ukraine. So why is Turkey so affected by this war? Turkey, an important member of NATO, is located south of Russia. Therefore, it also has commercial and political relations with Russia, considered as the continuation of the Ottoman Empire. Turkey has historically pursued a special policy in this regard. According to this policy, which is called the policy of balance in Turkey, Turkey aims to establish a balanced relationship with both Russia and NATO. In this way, it aims to resolve the crisis between the two blocs. NATO has always supported this policy of Turkey. All official talks between Russia and Ukraine are taking place in Turkey. The Turkish government brings together representatives of the two countries, especially for prisoner swap agreements. The most important agreement since the beginning of this war was the grain agreement. As you know, the grain shipped from the Ukrainian ports all over the world was very important for food production. If the grain ships could not sail because of the war, it would lead to a food crisis all over the world. The Turkish government put pressure on Russia on this issue. Representatives of the two countries met in Turkey and a great agreement was signed. In this way, the food crisis was solved. Turkey's move disrupted Russia's plans. Turkey also has the power to influence this war due to its geographical location. Russia and Ukraine have many ports in the Black Sea. Russia was planning to use these ports to bomb Ukraine. However, for these ships to reach the Black Sea, they need to pass through the Dardanelles and the Bosphorus. Turkey does not allow Russian warships to pass through these straits. This completely disrupts Russia's attack plans. The Russian army cannot use its navy in this war. Why is Turkey intervening so much in this war? Why is Russia helpless against Turkey? As you know, millions of Russian citizens have been fleeing their country since the beginning of the war. The vast majority of Russians fleeing their country are migrating to Turkey. For many years, Russians preferred Turkey's coastal cities for vacation. After the start of the war, Russian citizens started to live in these regions in Turkey. This huge influx of migration is causing many crises in Turkey. Turkey has been hosting millions of Syrian refugees for many years. After this war, a housing crisis began to emerge as a result of the arrival of Russian citizens to the country. As a result of this massive migration, the number of houses in touristic areas became insufficient. This led to an increase in housing prices. People living in these cities cannot pay the rent prices and therefore react to the government. The Turkish government wants to solve this crisis as soon as possible. On the other hand, there was a strong agricultural trade between Turkey and Russia. Hundreds of products produced in Turkey, such as tomatoes and corn, were sold to Russia. This war changed the trade relations between Russia and Turkey. As a result, the Turkish economy was badly affected. The Turkish government wants this war to end in order to re-establish trade relations with Russia. The most important thing Turkey is doing to end this war is buy Dr. drones. These drones are produced in Turkey and sent to Ukraine. By using these drones, the Ukrainian army has a great military superiority over Russia. These drones are considered to be the most powerful drones in the world. The Ukrainian army uses these drones to track all movements of the Russian army. The bombs carried by the drones are supported by artificial intelligence programs. These bombs cause great damage to the Russian army, especially Russian tanks had never escaped from these drones. Thanks to these drones used by the Ukrainian army, most of Russia's ground operations are prevented. Thanks to these drones, the Ukrainian army has managed to destroy thousands of Russian tanks. There are also continuous operations against Russian trenches. The drones can drop bombs very precisely on the target. Ukrainian soldiers use these drones to bomb the inside of Russian trenches. Russian soldiers cannot hide in the trenches. The Russian army cannot do anything against these drones. Russian commanders reported this situation to Putin. Putin got very angry and wanted to buy drones from Turkey, but the Turkish government did not allow the sale of drones to Russia. Russia then bought Iranian drones, but they were not powerful enough. The Russian army suffered a heavy defeat in drone competition. Turkey's latest move could end Russia for good. The Turkish government has announced a special project. This project is actually a special military ship. This ship, the largest ship of the Turkish Navy, has an interesting feature. This ship, named TCG Anadolu, became the world's first armed unmanned aerial vehicle ship thanks to the runway on this ship. A new center was created for drones to fly and refuel. This 231-meter-long military ship is considered one of the most special military ships in the world. TCG Anadolu is currently based in Istanbul. The people of Turkey are visiting this ship and journalists from all over the world are examining it. The Turkish government is publicizing this new project, but the Russian government has begun to experience a great fear because of this ship. So why is this ship scaring Russia? As you know, drones are very important in the war between Russia and Ukraine. However, the Ukrainian army cannot reach everywhere in Russia using these drones. This ship, named TCG Anadolu, can make an important contribution to the Ukrainian army in this regard. Some experts say that this ship will be sent to areas close to Russian ports in the Black Sea. The Ukrainian army can expand drone operations using this ship. The Ukrainian army can organize very important operations against Russia using this ship. The Russian army could not do anything against drone operations. The fact that Turkey is a member of NATO also increases the importance of this ship. All of Turkey's weapons systems are integrated with NATO. TCG Anadolu can also make a great contribution to NATO's operations. Turkey has shown the whole world that it is an indispensable member of NATO. What do you think about these Turkish moves? How do you think these Turkish moves will affect the course of the war? What do you think about the TCG Anadolu, a drone ship produced in Turkey? What are your thoughts on Bayraktar drones? I'm going to war. Evgenia Emerald told her family on February 24th how soon her 10-year-old daughter asked. Within 30 minutes, she replied. Evgeny was ex-husband, evacuated his daughter and mother to the west of Ukraine, and she enlisted in the Kiev Territorial Defense Draft Board. This Ukrainian girl had been a master of law, a four-time European champion in modern choreography, and is currently a graduate of the Diamonds program. However, she was a military department graduate and held the rank of first lieutenant while studying at the university. Even though she's sure she had been preparing all her life for this war, this does not mean Evgenia wanted or planned to fight. In many cases, it is only when one faces a crucial situation that one becomes aware of one's true calling. The irony of fate is that sometimes people end up not where they anticipated they would land and do not know what they were preparing for. But they accept this calling and move forward. Before the Russian aggression, Evgenia Emerald worked in the jewelry business. However, she was involved in the country's territorial defense the day after the invasion. As the war began, Evgenia was not yet a sniper, and with her friends, she warmly prepared to meet the invaders on the streets of Kiev. She took the call sign Jeanne d'Arc 600 years after the famous French woman passed away. The Ukrainians benefited from the determination and courage of the French woman. Russian troops never breached Kiev's first line of defense. There was fighting everywhere around the capital in Gostomel, Irpin, Masterson, Bucha, Brovary, and Vasilkov. In our past videos, you can learn more about these battles so that we don't dwell on them here. But we will note that by the end of March, the bone-tired Russian army had been forced to retreat. Evgenia Emerald continued her service after the retreat of the Russians after being offered a position in the Safari Special Purpose Regiment, a part of the National Police of Ukraine. She accepted the offer. Note, however, that only professionals can serve in such units. People from the streets or mobilized individuals are not allowed in such units. The Safari Regiment is made up exclusively of highly motivated fighters who have a great deal of experience. As a result of their police skills, the Safari fighters were the first to enter Bucha while clearing out this town. As a result of their police skills, they were able to record all the evidence of Russian war crimes during the selection process. The recruiter of the Safari Regiment drew attention to the girl's marksmanship from the beginning, so there were no problems with her recruitment. She learned her basic skills of handling guns and pistols and marksmanship through her childhood because her father instilled a love in weapons in her from an early age. Her parents' house always had official weapons, so Evgenia grew up learning how to handle guns and pistols and knew the basics of marksmanship. Despite this, these skills weren't enough to enter the professional ranks. A special education and training program was necessary. It also took some time for Evgenia to get used to everyday difficulties, and some time was spent on combat coordination. Evgenia became the first girl in the regiment. It isn't easy to be the only girl in a barracks with 600 people when there are so many people, especially when the barracks are random or temporary rooms where cruise missiles can be sucked up at any moment. Though the commander offered Evgenia a separate room, she refused. Being a girl in a special purpose regiment requires you to constantly prove yourself that you are no worse than the others. A junior lieutenant of the Safari Regiment had his first combat mission as a Janjak. When he is sent to Trostianets Sumy region, she and the 93rd Ukrainian Brigade members followed the retreating Russian tank division, Kantemirovskaya, as it retreated across the desert. The Russians attacked the city of Trotsk units at the end of February. About 800 Russian troops were stationed in the city during the occupation, which lasted almost a month. The Russian forces were forced to withdraw from the city by the end of March 2022 after losing more than 30% of their tanks. Lieutenant General Sergei Kyzyl, the Russian army commander, was removed from his position after the commander of the 13th Tank Regiment shot himself. The rifles that Eugenia brought with her on this trip were the Ticker T3, Tech A1, and Accuracy International AX 308 sniper rifles. These are both models of rifles that are commonly used by military and police personnel around the world since the Ticker rifle weighs around 8 pounds. This rifle is ideal for assaults or sweeps where the sniper has to move quite a bit to be effective. However, the Accuracy International AX 308 sniper rifle is a more convenient choice for the observer and fire controllers and stationary positions to observe or control the gray zone. This model has almost twice as much weight, but a much longer effective range. There were 2 rifles, a first aid kit, other sniper equipment, and a massive supply of 308 Winchester cartridges and of Genius personal red Porsche Cayenne trunk. All of these things could fit, even though the car had been repainted in camouflage. Of Jenny's companion sat in the passenger seat, and it took a few hours to reach Trostianets. There are 2 types of combat missions that Safari Regiment fighters do. First, they attack the enemy's advanced positions. Second, they clean and control the liberated areas due to the quick retreat of the Russians from Sumy. Evgenia and her colleagues had to clean up urban buildings and premises more often. Danger lurked everywhere. It could be a mine or an ambush of the enemy's rearguard units, which covered the main force's retreat. Mines were right behind every door for Ukrainian fighters. If someone opened a cabinet without checking it around first, even a kitten could be dangerous and make the entire team die through gaps in the walls. Russian saboteurs moved from apartment to apartment. The holes were covered with rags or carpets, so the enemy could be behind the Ukrainians anytime. Russian saboteurs hid in the next building when Ukrainians attacked them. This is how the Russians slowed down the Ukrainian army's advance to prevent Russian saboteurs from escaping with impunity. The outer perimeter of each facility is typically guarded by snipers. Evgenia delivered the service while her colleagues were inside. Her results aren't something she brags about. Apparently, it's acceptable among Special Forces soldiers. According to official figures, Ukrainian Special Forces detained 29 Russians. The Russians killed hundreds after the operations to liberate Trostianets. They nicknamed Evgenia Emerald, the Punisher. Having the enemy call you Punisher would be an outstanding achievement. Photographs of Evgenia Emerald appeared shortly after the Sumy region was liberated in the Russian press and on the pages of Russia's ultra-patriots. They promised a reward for her head. Jeanne d'Arc was declared dead several times, but the information turned out to be false each time. But some losses were not spared. Yevgeny's first mentor, Captain Viktor Pankin from Ivano-Frankivsk, died in a missile attack. He was the platoon commander of the 2nd Company and had revealed Yevgenia's sniper talent to her. "It is more critical to focus on victory in war than revenge," said Evgenia. Next on the agenda was Kharkiv. During that time, Kharkiv was constantly bombarded by Russian artillery. The Russians used high-precision missiles to destroy Ukrainian units, so Ukrainian units often had to change their temporary location. As a result of the shelling, the Ukrainian army pushed the enemy back meter by meter from Kharkiv. It was a battle in a small village or town. Snipers often have to shoot on the move after dashes for particular or full-blown work when attacking in such conditions. Once or twice, he is fired. He should then run again. When a sniper is part of an assault team, a typical street fight looks like this. Assault teams move along walls or fences. A steady stream of sniper fire follows their movement. Snipers are also responsible for watching the flanks during such situations. Evgenia has mastered all these techniques to perfection because she constantly trains. However, like all her colleagues, the regiment suffered minimal losses during assault operations. American military instructors train Safari Special Forces from Task Force 31. As you subscribe to our channel, you'll learn more about this company's role. The Safari Regiment was sent to Zaporizhia to prevent Russians from accessing the occupied settlements. Kharkiv's experience showed that the enemy was challenging to drive out of fortified regions to disorient the enemy. Ukrainian aircraft attacked the enemy's positions and worked out the territory with mortars. With a successful counterattack, ammunition and prisoners were captured and the approaches to the positions were mined. In such a war, the role of the sniper is observation. Surveillance sectors are divided into zones or lanes. The sector width per sniper is usually 500 to 600 ft, and the depth depends on the instrumentation. A piece of reliable and timely information is often more valuable than eliminating a few enemy soldiers. Significantly, when you must immediately shift positions after each shot, it is the enemy's priority to hunt down snipers. The Russians used Grad missiles to destroy one sniper. The second volley can be fired in 7 minutes, allowing for reloading. Despite this, it is almost impossible for a sniper to survive after the first one. There are 34 acres of open space. Despite losing many colleagues and brothers to hell, Evgenia Emerald succeeded in conquering all the circles of hell. Most likely, we won't hear about her new adventures anytime soon. She married a Ukrainian soldier who she met on the front lines. The couple married right there. Now that they are expecting a baby, Jean-Jacques has put away her rifles and is getting ready to become a second mother. The Russians launched around 100 Iranian kamikaze drones. According to the Ukrainian General Staff, 45 drones were shot down, 13 of them before midnight and 32 of them after midnight. The photos of the remnants of these drones show that the Russians have written New Year wishes on them. The Ukrainians have prepared to protect their cities during New Year's night because they created so-called civil defense squads, which are basically mobile anti-drone groups that operate just outside the cities. The fact that they are using off-road cars helps them to coordinate and quickly concentrate on a particular direction. One car uses a powerful flashlight to trace the drone, while others can reliably aim off to shoot the drones that are hundreds of meters away. As I told you yesterday, the Russians have concentrated their efforts on protecting the air over Moscow and created around 3 circles of air defense systems, with a total of 2,000 people monitoring the sky during the New Year. I also told you that the Russians have likely compromised their air defense in other regions around Ukraine, which means that the Ukrainians might exploit this opportunity. And this is exactly what the Ukrainians did today at night. The Ukrainians struck a huge Russian military base in the Donetsk region. The base was located in Makiivka, and according to some sources, there were around 600 troops, including 3 high-ranked commanders. The building was reportedly struck by HIMARS. All rockets hit the building simultaneously and completely demolished it. It was reported that the building had a lot of ammunition in the basement, which detonated and amplified the destruction. Locals reported that the Russians had to use a lot of trucks just to collect the dead bodies, and the trucks were so overloaded with dead bodies that some of them fell on the road from the trucks, which was captured on camera by the cars that were using the road after the trucks departed. Overall, it is estimated that 500 soldiers were killed and the rest is heavily wounded. And even if they survive, they will not return to the front. The Ukrainians have also taken the chance to target military objects in the neighboring Russian regions, in particular Kursk, Belgorod, Voronezh, and Rostov. The videos filmed by the residents of the big Russian cities only captured the sound of the air defense system. No destruction of civilian infrastructure has been recorded, so the targets must be military objects. Some sources indicate that the explosions were heard near the airfields, which the Russians indeed use quite often in this region. Despite the fact that the Russians tried to protect Moscow and St. Petersburg, some sources indicate that it was still, quote, loud out there. I found no reports of explosions, but it was said that the air threat sirens indeed went official. While the Russians have been targeting the Ukrainian capital with the drones with symbolic New Year wishes, the Ukrainians have struck Russian military objects. The destruction of the military base in Makiivka is one of the most successful missile strikes during this war. But this might not be the end of it because just like with the missile strike in Zaporizhia, some soldiers may start deserting here as well in fear of being the next target. And given that the Donetsk front is one of the hottest,